for today's topic, there was one topic we still needed to cover, which was referrals and the overall status of candidates and pre-hire. We talked about these statuses before, but we didn't clearly define them. And I came across this good graphic and want to make sure that this was clear to everybody because it comes across in a lot in conversations. So I'll start with this. So what I'm showing on the screen is the different statuses that are available within recruiting. And when we talked about it before, we said there's in the recruiting lifecycle, we have the different stages. And we have the review, screen, assess, interview, reference check, offer, and background check, and etc., and hire. So when someone's at the hire stage, it's very clear that they are an employee or a contractor, and then in Workday calls them worker. But prior to that, we have what's called prospect. So prospects would be someone who is in the system that you want to track. As a recruiter, you may want to enter a prospect into the system, but they're not tied to a job requisition yet. Like you want to apply them to some job, but you don't know which job yet. So initially when they're entered, they're a prospect. And then when they're attached to a particular job and they're in these stages, then they're an active candidate. And when an offer is made to them, at that point, they are considered a pre-hire. So these 4 statuses are important to know. And these 3 are really just a substatus of the candidate stage. And so when someone needs to create a prospect in the system, and I'm not going to create them because it's very basic tasks, but the task to do that is just create prospect, and there's different prospect types. And the task name for that is maintain prospect types. I will show that to you guys in the system now. There's a question for someone saying, what is the applicant in this process? So applicant is more of a generic word and is used interchangeably it's more of a generic word. So a pre-hire is also a applicant, but applicant and candidate are used interchangeably. So applicant would mean someone who has applied to a particular job, but until the informal HR language, when a person applies, they're still considered an applicant. But when the recruiter reaches back to them, now for legal purposes, they're considered a candidate. So, for like, they need to report on the number of candidates or versus the number of people who have applied. So in general, applicant and candidate are being used synonymously. Okay, so when we go to the prospect table, so when the recruiter is creating a prospect, he could make them as referred by HR, or this guy is a graduating from college student or potential candidate or new to the workforce. So you could modify these as per your company. And you could also create prospects from an internal worker. So you could even have an employee, and you want to maybe recruit them for a different job requisition. So you could also make the employee a prospect for a different possible different role. And then in that case, it will take the experience level, type, and status, and you could consider the internal employee as a prospect for a different role. Okay. And for the active candidate is when you convert the prospect to an active candidate when you create a job application for them. So, like when we went to the different candidates and there was a status of like create job application, or you could also just type in the task, create job application. So here you could take a particular candidate and select the job, like the open jobs, and then fill out this job application on behalf of them. So I believe we have Ramesh as a candidate in the system as well. And if you enter the summary, skills, experience, etc., a lot of this information is pre-populated from the resume. So here, you're creating a job application, and in that way, you're converting a prospect into an active candidate. Okay, so let me cancel out of that. Another thing I want to show to you guys is what's called, there's always issues about duplicate candidates in the system. So how do duplicates occur in the system? Like say, for example, someone may have applied for a job at your company, like say a year ago, and then 6 months ago or 2 months ago, somebody else referred that person to a job requisition. So now you have two people or two profiles who are the same people, and they're in the system as duplicate profiles. So this creates a lot of confusion when you're trying to set up an interview or do background check. And so there's always a question like, okay, how do you manage the duplicates, right? How do you identify them? And how do you merge them together? Okay, so as a prerequisite, if you do want to automatically merge them, Workday has a functionality that you set up in Edit Tenant Setup Recruiting, and it's called auto merging. Okay, but this auto merging is only if you're loading a lot of data into the system and you already have some candidate in the system, and then you load additional candidates, and then you could set up a system, you could turn on that functionality under that edit tenant, and then it will find candidates based on first name, last name, if there's an email address that matches, and then it will look for one additional piece of information. And if those things match, then it will automatically merge those candidates. But that's for when you're loading or you're submitting a lot of candidates via an integration or a load file. If you're manually entering candidates or you want to find duplicates, so the task is find duplicates, and if you run that task, it will give you the candidate name and then any matching profiles. and then you have the action available of merging. You can click on merge, and in this case, it will take the most recent record and keep that one, and then if there's any jobs or job recs that are tied to the other record, it will attach it to the more recent one. And so what is the criteria that is used for automatic merging or manual merging? So if there's an exact first name and last name, okay? So all of these are based on points. So Workday gives the highest priority if there's an exact first name, last name, and then there's an exact last name and initial of first name. And then if the phone number matches and email matches. And then if all of these matches, and even if one of these does not match, but you had a same manager name or maybe a same company, a previous company, so Workday will also consider that when it's finding the duplicates based on this task. So it looks at all these criterias and it will present it to you, and then you could click on merge to merge those profiles manually. And you could actually unmerge them also, because once you merge someone, they don't totally disappear from Workday, but they are hidden from any searching. But there is a report called unmerge. And if you have merged a candidate, you go to the surviving candidate profile, and then from the related actions, you could unmerge them using the related actions menu or the unmerge button. So there is a way to undo the merging of those profiles, just in case that needs to occur. All right, so just a little bit about the statuses and managing duplicates. And let's talk about referrals now. Referrals are, just like when a candidate applies, but referral usually means that someone who's already working at your company, they're going to refer someone else to HR for hiring. And so the overall process is that there is a business process called refer a candidate business process. Refer a candidate, that is the name of the business process. So you need to make sure that that BP is active in the system, and it has, initiator is all workers, and if you want to put an approval step on there, you could do that as well. And so that's number one thing. You need to make sure that business process is active. And then you want to define the referral relationships, and then you could create a referral. So there is refer a candidate task that's available in the system, or you could create a referral on behalf of someone. So let's try these from within the system. Okay, so as Logan, she wants to refer someone herself, like maybe she has a friend that she wants to refer. So refer a candidate. So here you would put in their name and contact info, and you would put in the jobs and job areas. So remember, job areas are job families. And this is something that's set up at the recruiting tenant level setup where you enable job areas. So if it's enabled, then it would show up here that you could say, hey, I don't know which job this person is good for, but I want to submit them for any position in sales. So you could select the sales job area. So here, as an employee, you're referring the candidate that you know the name, and you may have their resume, and you could submit that. And then based on your business process, it will go to the recruiter. So let's check out that business process. VP refer a candidate. You might have an extra space in there. Okay, so in this business process, we see that the initiator has to answer a questionnaire, and then it goes to the recruiter as well for approval. But these steps actually have to be configured by the organization because these are not part of the delivered BP. So you definitely add complete questionnaire and the configure step in there if you want to open that up. You could add a question in there, say like, why do you think this person is qualified? But basically you create a questionnaire, and when you have one or more than one question, you could put them into add them as a questionnaire like we saw in I believe it was session 2. So yeah, they have questions such as describe how this candidate would match our company culture, or describe the qualities of this candidate. So you could do that as part of your referral business process. Okay. When you're referring someone, let me go back to that screen again. Refer a candidate. It asks you, how do you know this person? And here's a list of like relationships. This person is acquaintance, a friend, relative, etc. So this data or this list of values is coming from the referral relationships table. And that table is called maintain referral relationships. Okay, so here you could add or remove the different types of relationships for that table. Okay, so when you use the task refer a candidate, that's an employee who's referring someone they know personally. But if someone gives a resume to the recruiter to submit on your behalf, then the task is a different one. In that case, the recruiter will use create a referral. So now the recruiter is going to take the resume that you give them, because now it has referred by. So now instead of the employee using refer a candidate task, now you're creating a referral of someone who was referred by another employee, and the rest of the information is the same. Okay. So that's create a referral, typically used when it's typically used by the recruiter when someone else gives them the resume. Okay. And the third way when a referral is created is from when there's a job posting, and there's a job posting on the internal career center, which you could go to the list of jobs by saying find open jobs, find open jobs. And you have to find a job that is enabled for referrals. So we have, this particular job, and there is a refer button. So as an internal employee, they could apply for this job for themselves, or they could refer someone else. So this is I believe, the third way you could refer someone directly from that button. Okay. Okay. To find referrals that you have submitted before, there's a couple of reports available, and this my referrals to see everybody that you have referred before. So my referrals. And has like which application and which stage they're in. So that's one report. There's also another report, referrals without job applications for those who do not have any job attached to them. And there's a couple other reports with respect to referrals. So here you could filter on by particular, if you're a recruiter and you want to see all the referrals in the system. So you could definitely use that job. Okay, and there is one more functionality in Workday, which I will show on the screen. And unfortunately, we don't have that set up in the demo tenant, so I'll just have to speak to that. And that's called endorsements. And what is an endorsement is a way that Workday allows external candidates to enter the name or email of the company worker when they're applying to a job posting. So, when I was applying externally and there was a field in there like, how did you find out about this role? At that time, you could enter the name of a existing employee at a company, and when you submit it, that employee at that company, they will receive a request to endorse your application. And then the employee, they could accept the endorsement. And then in that case, Workday will create a referral record for that person, or they could decline the endorsement. And then Workday will delete the association between the worker and the candidate's job application. So it won't delete the candidate record, but it will remove that association between you and the candidate. But what's confusing is Workday does not delete the endorsement request from the worker's inbox, even when it's no longer possible to endorse that candidate. So it'll be confusing and annoying to the person, and they'll keep bugging you, by putting in a support ticket like, hey, this endorsement is still in my inbox. So it's not possible to delete it from there, but you could delete all endorsement information from the candidate's profile and job application. So you will have to do that manually from the candidate's job profile. Okay. And the BP that allows you to do that is called BP endorsed candidate. So we do have that in there. I will just quickly show that business process. So this is the default definition. I think it just has one step in there. So the candidate or the applicant submits it, and then it goes to the employee or the contingent worker who works at the company, and then they have 2 days to act on it because of the endorsed candidate step. And I think in this case, the customized BP is also the exact same thing. Yeah, and then obviously you could put a notification on it as well. Like you don't, if you just have the notification on it, then you could at the same time perhaps send that notification to a recruiter as well with the details of the candidate. So that's the endorsement business process. Let me go to the external career center, and then I'll show you where this, where do you have to select the worker. So give me 30 seconds to pull that up. I was going to look for the external career center link for my notes, but I just realized I could just go to Edit Career Center, and I could get the link from there as well. So Edit External Career Site. Okay. So here's the link to the External Career Center. Okay, so when you're applying, you'll see a field called, how do you know about this? Okay. So this field right here, how did you hear about us? There's one selection in there called employees. Sorry, not employees. Referral, like if you want someone to refer you. And then if you select employees referral, and then you get to put their email address or name in here. And then that creates the association between the applicant and the employee. And then the employee will get an email and then in their inbox, and they could either endorse you or they could decline that. So that's the endorsements functionality. Let me just go back to the business process. Endorse candidates. So when you set up this business process, you want to make sure that you add some help text to it. So I just want to show you where that is, and that's under related actions, business process, and then maintain help text. So based on a certain condition, like say the candidate is in the US or they're in the UK, you create a particular condition, and on the right-hand side, you can put some help text. In this delivered business process, obviously there's not going to be any default help text. So let me pull up the one that's actually not the delivered business process, but the one that's for the GMS tenant. So business process, and then maintain help text. So here we see some help text example. Okay, that was pretty straightforward, but it's good functionality. It's a little bit of a newer functionality than just applicants or candidates. Endorsements came a little bit later. Yeah, but okay, so that's all the class material I had for today. I did see a question regarding a integration to Indeed or any of the job boards. So I don't have any integration as part of this class, but I was going to look up any documentation on creating that, or if someone has created that as a solution. I didn't get a chance to look for one yet, but I will look for it today, and I will post it on the community regarding any integration to a job board. So I will cover that. I'll just, whatever information I could find, I'll post that on the job board. And then regarding resume review, so I'm definitely available now if someone wants to share their screen and put the resume up, and we could talk about it. Our support team, they did put up a sample Workday resumes on the LMS, and please review those. And then there's also some links to resume review information. So definitely I'm available for another 20 minutes if someone has particular questions. Some of the stuff that I do want you guys to put on the resume, it shouldn't be just like, hey, I have taken this class and these were the things that I learned. It should be, I have learned how to maintain the compensation business process end to end. I know how to troubleshoot merit plans, how to troubleshoot the compensation grid, and I know how to audit the data. And so put like complete information like that, and it will definitely be. So I'm gonna turn the mic over to you guys. So advanced comp, the most difficult area would be understanding the different plans they have. So most companies won't have just one plan, right? They're gonna have multiple plans.
Right.
And if they're sophisticated, they're gonna have more than one compensation basis. And in our examples, I give you an example of in the US, we use the delivered compensation basis. Compensation basis, it just means the method Workday uses to calculate the salary. So in US, the salary was just based on, base salary. In India, your salary is based on base salary plus allowance plus provident fund. So that is a separate compensation basis that needs to be set up. And that part is very confusing because on the compensation page in Workday, at the top where you see those three widgets, the data that you show there depends on how your compensation bases are set up. And that is very tricky to understand and set up properly. Let me give you an example of that page. So what most companies do is they just hide it. They just hide that section because they don't want to deal with correcting it. So you could definitely hide it, but it's better to understand how to set it up properly. So here, if I go to the compensation tab, okay. So you have total salary and allowance and total base pay. And there should be another column here, which I think is hidden. Yeah, see, even here it's not properly set up. There should be another column. So whether or not this salary is supposed to include the allowances or not, that is defined within compensation bases. And so setting up the compensation, different formulas, the compensation plans, and then the eligibility criteria for each plan. So I think those are the difficult parts. I mean, they're not difficult. I think the only difficult part is compensation bases, but setting up the eligibility criteria and the plans itself is pretty easy. And as a starting point to understand where this is coming from, I'll go through this again, is actions and compensation. This person does not have the proper access, but under compensation, there would be compensation bases, and that explains how. Let me look in my own tenant, and I'll give you the menu name or a screenshot because it's not showing up in there. So I have to take a screenshot from my tenant, so give me 30 seconds. Okay, so when you go under compensation here, when you have full access, you will see a lot more menus. So this one, if you look under there, it will tell you how those values got calculated and which bases are being utilized.
Okay.
And then, during the time of merit or focal process, if a company wants to upload the earnings instead of using base salary, and you're going to use an EIB to upload it, but if you want to view it, what has been loaded, then it's this view eligible earnings override, and this will take you to that screen that has that data. And remember, if there's only very few people that need eligible earnings, then you could just manually do it from here. When we were setting up the compensation program, and I said either we could use Workday to calculate the total budget, or if the compensation is not correct within Workday, in that case, payroll or HR, they will give you the total earnings for the employee.
Okay, so this is an odd case scenario where.
Yeah, actually, it's an odd case, but it's very common. A lot of companies don't trust their data within Workday because of overtime or because of allowances, or they don't have the proper plan set up. They may not have the merit plan set up.
Okay.
properly, and they may not have the eligibility criteria. Like, like we saw, or I showed you guys, like in each country, you're supposed to give them 3% for US. Their budget should be 3% of their base salary. And in India, it should be 6%. So if they don't want to do the work to set it up in Workday that way, and they just want to calculate that manually outside of the system,
And just
in that
load the
case,
final amounts in here.
yeah, in that case, they will give you an Excel file with the ID of the employee and their earnings,
Okay.
and then you will need to upload that earnings.
When we are saying earnings here, it's the final amount, right, that we would load, or is it the full blown?
No, the earnings would be um, their bonus amount is going to be based on the earnings. So they may get 10% bonus target on 100,000 per year earnings.
The base earnings. Okay. Okay.
Okay. There was a question about how many years experience can you put on there. You could definitely do 1.6 to 2 years, because the stuff that we covered within the compensation merit class, that is 6 months. The advanced benefits is 6 months, and recruiting is 6 months. And then add to that any of the reporting knowledge that you already have, right? You already have taken that class, and you already have the HCM class and how to create supervisory orgs, and perhaps you already know how to do business process modifications, even though we covered some business processes in here, but that was not the main focus. But from your earlier class, you must have learned how to modify business processes, and how to add groups, like who's going to be the approval in a particular business process. So given all of that, definitely 2 years, and you should be able to add that. Okay. I'm just going through the chat notes. Kash, you wanted to share the resume. Okay, so support team, I'm gonna need your help to take away the sharing from me and give it to Akash.
Hey, after this, when you get a chance, before we leave, can you high level explain or give us the idea about what are the major challenges or support issues raised for recruiting?
Yes, I could do that. So while we're actually transferring the sharing control by the support team, can you please move or give screen share to Akash? Actually, I made a list of those questions. So let me pull that up in the meantime. Okay, for the recruiting issues, I just posted it on LMS. Like I just went this weekend, I was actually thinking about like what are the things that like stumped me over the years. So it's basically around the business process conditional routing. You know, like I want to route it to the recruiters, but not to the HR admin. And so you should know how to change it from one group to another, like modify the business process. And then also you need to be able to override the label. You know, like each stage has a particular, like a default name, right? But the company may not want to keep that name. They want to label things differently. So there's a step within the business process where you could change the label. So that's a very common ask. Or they want to modify the candidate types. So there's a table for that. Another one is like if you need to update the candidate's email address. Okay, so now the candidate profile within Workday is based off their email address, and now 1 year, candidate applied, and it's been 1 year now, and the candidate has forgotten what email address they use, right? So they give you a call, and they want to change the email they have used, or perhaps they're no longer using that email address.
Okay.
If they remember their information, they could change their email address from the external career center. But if they don't remember, if they don't have access to their old email, like I have lost access to my Hotmail account, right? I haven't used that for like decades. So there is a way to update the email address. And I had to look it up actually, and I'm attaching it to the LMS on the steps on how to update the candidate's email address. And that actually has come up quite often. Like people lose access to their email address and now they need to change it. So how do we actually do that? And then e-verify is a headache. I always just, fortunately in my role, I'm always able to take help from the integration guys, and they do the heavy lifting, but it's a headache. And then reporting. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with the recruiting, but they use a lot of reports. Yeah, and so time to fill and related reports. So you have to use a lot of calculated fields, and you need to be familiar with the recruiting data sources. So look at the existing reports that are in the system, and then build calculated fields on top of that. And I think I posted an example of a time to fill report that someone did. Were you able to get access to share your screen? So first of all, I think right off the bat in your summary, the bullet about Workday Core HCM, make that your first bullet.
Okay.
Right, your work, like anything related to Workday should be at the top, and because in the Workday environment, because you're not a programmer, software, SDLC doesn't really come into play. And second comment would be that maybe minimize the number of bullets you have in the summary. And if this is for a Workday analyst or Workday consultant or Workday support, things that are not relevant to it, like remove them, but keep the MS project and keep the analytical skills, keep that. But you should definitely put bullet of end-to-end compensation review process. So somewhere you should put, and definitely put benefit / open enrollment maintenance. The third bullet should be recruitment setups and business processes. So definitely add those. Things like Rational Doors or Jira, I think you could minimize those things, or like your summary should be just maybe like 5 bullets, 5 to 6 bullets. Since you have BERT experience, under key areas of expertise, you should highlight that because BERT is a rare talent. So under key areas of expertise, you should highlight utilizing BERT for, like in the section below, like here somewhere, maybe maybe underneath the integration line, Workday integration consultant, below that. So you should put something to the effect that created compensation or employment verification reports utilizing BERT. Create compensation letters utilizing BERT. Okay. All right. So I think the rest of, I don't know how many pages it is, but it should not be no more than 2 pages or maybe 3. So you definitely have to shorten it up a little bit. So yeah, try and make it no more than like 3 pages. And then if there's like some minor experience or really old experience, I think it's better to just drop that.